Hello, everybody. Garcia here. Currently sitting inside of the project space at the Pensacola Museum of Art. Today is the 30th of July, and my show is about to come down in a few days. This has been one of the most exciting and weirdest experiences of my life. My intention with this show, and I guess almost with this artist talk as well, was to talk about the importance of failure and the ability to adjust to said failure. This show was originally supposed to be up for 2 months, has now been up for 4 because of COVID, and it has been awesome and super painful all at the same time. I originally started this body of work that's behind me, the Familiar Faces series, like a decade ago. And when I originally started it, my intention was to finish it, and I just didn't. I did a chunk of them and showed them at a bar that no longer exists in Pensacola called Sluggo's. And I sold all the pieces for hella cheap, for the same reason why these are all on sale for hella cheap. Mainly because I just want people to have them, more than I really want to commodify them and make money off of them. But the intention behind them still holds up. These are just a big wall of attempts, some successes, and there's a lot that aren't hanging up here that were failures. And these all started as failures in a lot of ways. I feel like the biggest tool in my toolbox as an artist is failure. I started out as an artist being really terrible. A lot of my art was just, I was a beginner. I didn't really know what I was doing. And as I learned, I continued to fail upwards, I guess. But I think that that's kind of the biggest component of making original and honest artwork, is being willing to fail and keep going. There was a point in this series where I didn't think that I would finish them, mainly because apart from failure, my other biggest tool as an artist is procrastination. And the haste that comes along with waiting until the last minute for things is really tantalizing to me for some reason. And I kind of ride that anxiety, which, not saying that that should be everybody or that it is everyone, but it is definitely me. But that says a lot to how this work kind of manifested. As I was making these 100 pieces, like I said, I was you know, a week before, sitting there like, how the hell am I going to finish all these pieces? But I had gotten to a point where I was like the majority of the way through, and I knew that I was going to finish it. I just didn't really know how. And I knew that even if I didn't finish all 100, that I could pass it off as a success, and the only person that would ever see it as a failure was me. You know, I guess that's kind of the big part of it too. It's, I mean, what is failure to an artist anyway? You know, I mean, there's like millions of mistakes inside of these 100 pieces of art that you'll never fucking notice. You'll never even know that they're there. Only I will, and I'll obsess over it probably for the rest of my life. But that's kind of the whole point. It's like some of your favorite works of art that you've ever experienced or have really moved you are probably full of tiny mistakes that only the artist really knows about, you know. I feel like that idea carries through in a lot of life. Living in quote-unquote uncertain times, we find ourselves constantly faced with failure. Failure to communicate, failure to understand, just general failure. And being able to accept that what seems to be a negative and move forward and find ways to adjust to the fact that something may not have turned out the way that you wanted it to, is like the biggest move that anyone can ever make in their lives. Like, obviously, we're all adjusting to things right now, and we'll probably be adjusting to things for the rest of our lives. Definitely the foreseeable future, whatever that term means. But, I mean, at a certain point, I think we all have taken a step back and reevaluated things. Reevaluated what was important to us, what didn't matter, what never mattered, that we just made seem important to us. When I found out that this show was not going to have an opening reception or a closing reception, when I find out that the whole situation of this show was going to change, my first thought was, okay, cool. And that was mainly just due to the fact that I would much rather know that I did not contribute to any spread of illness or just general demise of anything that I find to be important. The safety of my community and my friends and my family is much more important to me than anyone ever seeing any of this shit. And that was an easy adjustment for me to make. Whenever the news first broke that the way the show was going to be experienced was going to change, the response I got from most people was really sad, and which is understandable. I mean, I feel like to most people that would be a blow that they may not come to the other side of, just due to the fact that it's really destabilizing to like put so much work into something. I mean, I worked on this shit for like a year, maybe more. I mean, like I said, this body of work has been in the works for like 10 years. But I'm not really the kind of person to accept failure in the way that it's presented to me. And in a lot of ways, this show, that is the whole identity behind this show, is unrelenting optimism in the face of obvious tragedy. Each one of these pieces, specifically behind me, tells a different story of each character, and each one of these characters represents either a part of myself or a part of myself that I see in someone else. So, I mean, it's all really personal. So when the show changed, I wasn't surprised, but I was surprised with myself at how easy it was to accept and adjust and adapt to whatever was going to happen. I just kept getting messages from people being like, man, like, I'm so sorry, this sucks. And I'm like, yeah, it's whatever. Like, I just want people to be safe. And they were like, wow, you're taking this so well. And I'm like, I mean, honestly, there's really like only two ways to take this. Either accept it and move forward, or have a fucking nervous breakdown. And as a person who's prone to nervous breakdowns, I too was surprised that I just kind of moved on and accepted it, which has kind of been my feeling through this entire situation. Adjust and accept, or in whatever order that comes. I feel like there's a lot to be said about like being emotional in times like these and like what that really means. And as someone who's like overly emotional about things that don't even matter, when faced with things that are detrimental, I guess, I feel like it's really easy for people to just like shut off in a lot of ways. And I do that myself sometimes. But a lot of that shut off time is learning and accepting and wondering and figuring things out for yourself. I find that a lot of the time, especially through a crisis like we find ourselves in, it's easy to just feel remiss for what we no longer have. But I wake up every day thankful for the things that I still do have. I mean, like, I might not be able to see my friends all the time, but I know that I have them. I might not have been able to have some big party for this art show, but that doesn't really matter to me. The success of this body of work had nothing to do with a big party. It honestly barely had anything to do with anyone ever seeing it. For me, the real accomplishment, the real success of this work was the fact that it was finished. And that I made it ever. That I ever made the conscious choice to make this much art with the intent to spread any feeling at all, whether it be happiness or sadness or melancholy or whatever this artwork sparks for you. So to have things change didn't really bother me. There was a point, I think PMA put out a post late last week or earlier this week or over the weekend that was, I think, a comment from one of the other artist talks where I was talking about how there's a moment in one of the videos where if I was going to have an opportunity to break down over the fact that this show was not going to be what I expected, it would have been at that moment. But you can see that I made a conscious choice to just keep going and finish the murals that I was working on and make sure that I got to see this show finished at the end of that night. And I did, and it was fucking sweet. Honestly, it was one of the most joyful times for me in a long time. Even in a time when I was like super scared and super unsure of anything that was going on, it was like an oasis in a desert of uncertainty. I was here the day that this show opened, and I stayed here for most of that afternoon. And it was the one day that it was open before everything shut down. And which I had a feeling that was going to happen, that everything was going to get shut down. So I wanted to be here for that. It was the day that the reception was supposed to happen. So I mainly just wanted to be here. I saw like maybe like 10 people come through here, and I would have been happy even if that was all that got to see it. And there was a part of me that thought that there might be a chance that that would be the case. That the people who came here that day, most of them strangers, would have been the only people to experience this body of work. And when I thought about it, while I was sitting in here that day, I accepted that. I was okay with that. I watched like a group of kids read my artist statement and play the mixtapes that I had made and really like examine my paintings like up close. And that's it for me, you know? Like I said before, like this body of work would exist whether anyone ever got to see it or not. But the fact that like anyone took the time to actually look at it is the coolest thing ever to me. But the adjustment period that it took for me to like fully grasp what was going on in the PMA has been more than accommodating to make it available for people between the virtual tour and extending their hours and staying open and being super thoughtful when it comes to sanitizing things. I mean, their volunteers are awesome. But I mean, I didn't expect any of that, you know. Like I said, I was under the assumption that there was a really good chance that this would just like be it. That it would just be housed here. And this would be something to put on a, you know, resume or CV or something, which is great too. But I'm not the kind of artist to really give a shit about any of that. But I feel like the main reason why I wanted to do this talk in the first place was to kind of give my final words on what this experience has meant to me and what it's offered me. I started working as an artist to fail. I never, ever expected to get this far. Ever. I thought that maybe I would like sell some stuff to my friends. Maybe I would like make some like tchotchke shit and like sell that or something. That's what I thought as a young person. That's as far as I imagined it would go. Although I idolized people who had gotten way further than that. Honestly, some of them at a younger age. But I just kept pushing myself to do more and to abandon my fear of not being able to do it. And that's kind of where, this is where I ended up. Being able to like abandon that part of yourself that is afraid to do new shit is like one of the best things I've ever done. Because if I would have never done that, I would have never even come close to this. The main focus of this body of work as a whole were the 100 faces. But there's a whole nother body of work, which I'll show in a minute, that really speaks to where I find myself now as an artist. I think everyone is now experiencing the lack of solid ground that time stands on. Like, we watched 2 months go by in the blink of an eye, and then we watched 2 more months go by, and it seemed like 100 fucking years. Like, when I think about how long ago I started working on this artwork, it literally blows my mind. I don't really think that I've been able to process that, and I'm not sure if I ever will. I had a notification pop up on my Instagram the other day that showed me the day that I started really working on this body of work. And it was like a year ago. earlier this month. And that is insane to me. That saying, like, you don't know what you got till it's gone, I can't even remember what band said that. It's probably a band I don't even really like, but whatever. It's true. I'm glad that I cherished all of this as much as I could while I had it, because this is a part of my life I won't get back. I think now we hear a lot of people talk about being on the right side of history, and I think that has a lot to do with the acceptance of our failures. When you can accept the fact that you can do wrong, and you have the ability to move forward and change those things, that is really important. To know that you can totally fuck something up, but you have the ability to fix it, is one of the most amazing human traits. And I really feel like that is a huge proponent in where we find ourselves as a society these days. We have to give room for people to completely mess things up and do their best to fix them. And obviously there are mistakes that people make that are unforgivable, so to speak. But for most of us, we should be able to congratulate and celebrate a failure and see it for what it is, an opportunity to do better. I think that I know that myself and also even the staff of the PMA have gotten to a point through this entire experience realizing that as much as this feels like failure, as much as this feels like total crap, it has given us new avenues to figure things out, new avenues to reach people, new avenues to make things better. So instead of focusing on how bad things are or how terrible they could be and projecting this idea of no hope, you pick yourself up and you figure it out and you make a better plan. I think we find ourselves in that situation all the time, probably daily. Like when I fail to remember to brush my teeth, or I fail to get somewhere on time. I write myself a note to brush my teeth the next day, and I set an alarm the next day to get to the place that I need to get to on time. I was late here today for that very reason. I mean, I'm late to everything, so that's not saying a lot, but when I look at this work, I see a million times that I overcame my pessimism and my ability to just doom everything where it sits. And I see this as a huge accomplishment just because it's in here. I never intended for this. And yeah, I just never thought that anything like this would happen. So yeah, that's really what this work means to me now. In the beginning, it was just fun art to try and put across my feelings about how we exist with each other. But as soon as things took the turn that they did, I realized that this body of work speaks on so many different things. It's insane. Like, not only does it speak of who I am and where I was when I made this work, but it says so much about where we are now as a community, as individuals, as a society. We live in a time where we're now experiencing a multitude of things that we either have never had to experience or have never even noticed were an experience that anyone around us were ever having. And that's a huge deal. as much as it's scary and unnerving and unsure, I have so much hope for the future. Mainly just due to the fact that I see a lot of people making mistakes and doing things the wrong way, and then being held accountable by themselves to do better. I think that's all any of us really want, is to do better every day that we can, that we're here, that we have the opportunity to do that. This body of work speaks to that for me, to the unrelenting will to move forward and do better. It's like the most human thing ever. So, that being said, I'm going to walk around and show off some of these paintings and give y'all a better idea of why I feel the way that I do at this point about this body of work. All right, y'all. So let's talk about some of these pieces. So I'm not going to focus on this body of work too much, just because I feel like I've talked about it a lot. And I'll probably continue to talk about it a lot over my social media. So I'll just talk about a couple of the pieces that I find to be really important to me. This was one of the first pieces that I made in this series. None of these are really titled individually, but you can see that it has the moniker that is used through a lot of these pieces, the Time Lies. And it really, there's so much symbolism packed into each one of these individually that it's really hard to focus on any of it. You've got the movement around this key, the chains that exist around this character, this like mythic beast. In a lot of ways, this piece says the same things that each one of these pieces says, which is this commonality based in individuality. I feel like we find ourselves in a state of trying to justify our individuality at all times, when it's those tiny characteristics that make us ourselves that connect us to each other in a lot of ways. I mean, when you think about when you're in school for the first time, or when you go to your first like group event as a kid, you try to find commonality between each other. And I mean, that kind of speaks to that on its own. So like I was saying, there's so many details within these pieces that it's hard to focus on any one. So I won't. I think that one of the main things I like about this series is that to me, they're almost like tarot cards, wherein the cards are cast and you project their meaning in a lot of ways, which makes them relative to you and your current experience. So I feel like when people experience this body of work, the details that they notice most, the details that jump out at them, that seem to be the most important, say more about them than they do about the body of work. These pieces say more about my experiences with other people than they do about my experiences solely, which I feel like is what makes this body of work so important to me, is the fact that it's kind of a homage to everyone that I've ever known. All the things that make me feel connected to all the people that I've met and all the experiences that I've had with those people, which is like the most important experience of any of our lives. You can't really take anything with you in the end, but you'll always have your experiences. So I'm sure a lot of people have wanted to ask or are curious about any of these details, but just take them for what they are. They are whatever you want them to be, along with all of these pieces. And more than likely, if you see yourself in one of these characters and you know me personally, it's probably based off of you, because a lot of these characters are based off of people that I love and people that I cherish. So yeah, familiar faces, that's exactly what they are. Just a bunch of familiar faces. And although these details seem very important, it's really the entire body of work that gives those symbols legitimacy. Yeah, this is one of my favorite bodies of work that I've ever put together. So we'll move over here. And this, in my opinion, is probably some of the most important work that I feel like I've made. This, I guess, collage of pieces is titled Thoughts and Prayers. You can see the title and some of the symbolism in these pieces. There's the thoughts, and here's the prayers. There's an installation piece in the middle, which has a lot of tiny details that I feel like say a lot about this body of work, from the bleach skulls and the glass skull and headpiece, these transparent light sculptures, which, thank you, Sonny. He's a good buddy of mine who helped me create these. This whole installation speaks of time and the passing of time. I almost don't even want to explain this piece. I feel like it speaks for itself, and if it doesn't, then you can figure it out. Time is of the essence, always, and we are caught in the middle of it. So Sluggo and Nancy was an old comic strip, and they spoke on a lot of interesting topics, from adolescence to political topics, and so I use them as characters in a lot of my work. A lot, but I mainly focused on these two pieces and the large wall piece, which I use a lot in my work, this floating Sluggo. But this entire installation, including the two titular pieces, the prayer installation and the thoughts installation, they speak of the pain and struggle of existing within time, not just the times that we exist in now, but just generally. As you can see, the same moniker that you find in the smaller pieces, time-wise, it plays a big role in all of this work because it's something that I feel very intimately and strongly about. I feel like our concept of time differs from person to person. Not that I have a lot of scientific backing for that. It's just how I feel as an artist and as an individual. This body of work is meant to, as people say, comfort the uncomfortable and make the comfortable uncomfortable, which I feel like it does very well. I could really go on for days about any one of these pieces, but I'm much more interested in people's interpretation of my work, so I really don't want to divulge too much of my feelings about these pieces. I'd much rather have you all contact me and tell me how you feel. So if you feel so inclined to tell me your feelings about this work, feel free to contact me. But yeah, I mean, like I said before, I feel like it speaks for itself. Thoughts and prayers is a concept and a statement that I feel like we hear a lot. And over time, it begins to lose its value, not because of its intention, but because of its fragility almost. To me, thoughts and prayers are all we have that truly belong to us, especially in the digital age where privacy is basically non-existent. What exists within our minds is all that's truly ours. And that is the synthesis of this installation, is the importance of our personal intention, our personal thought, our intuition, the things that really make us who we are. I could go on for days about how this work makes me feel. But like I said, I'm not going to do that. So apart from this installation, we have these large mural pieces, which I created on site specifically for this show. A lot of these are some of the smaller details from the Friendly Faces or the Familiar Faces series, just blown up. Some things that, I don't know, speak to me, I guess, in a way. I'm sure a lot of these symbols you would find familiar, but a lot of it really just is a manifestation of my thoughts and feelings. Like I said before, failure is one of my biggest tools and as an artist, and I never thought that I would be painting inside of the museum in the town that I grew up in. But I rode all of those mistakes and all of those failures out and found myself here. So, continue to fuck shit up and try to make it better. Whoops. So all of this work, obviously with the color scheme and the illustrative components, goes together. And a lot of the same symbolism is used throughout the show. The moniker Time-Wise, a lot of the small symbolism. So the third installation is the self-portrait, along with the video of the install, and the original piece that won me the solo show, which was titled Not Enough Hours in the Day, which was chosen by Richard McCabe, who is an amazing photographer. But this piece kind of mimics the Thoughts and Prayers installation, or vice versa. And it says, "Sorry, I am busy." Oh, wait. Yeah. "Sorry, I'm busy as fuck lately." Which is a phrase that I use so much, or at least used to, back when I had obligations and events to blow off regularly. These days I don't find myself saying it so much because I don't have anything to do. But this piece kind of falls in line with the Thoughts and Prayers installation, not only aesthetically, but also due to the theme. You've got this poor, sad, cute little bunny man
plagued with the burden of infinite knowledge and wisdom, with his little phone radiating in his hand and projecting these falsehoods, little cartoon version of what is actually happening, this scary monster creeping up behind him. It's our dependence on technology to represent who we are and how we feel is just not working. And I think we find that more and more as days go by, which is really what Thoughts and Prayers has to do with more than anything, is that we find ourselves with these complex emotions and individualized experiences that we try to comprehend while we try to exhibit those same thought processes and feelings through digital media, and a lot of those things don't transcend. It's truly difficult to represent yourself well through social media because it's not who we are. It's not actually us. We are our thoughts. We are our hopes. We are our dreams. That's what makes us individuals. So anyway, another one of what ended up being one of my favorite pieces was the self-portrait. I'm not the kind of person to really do a lot of self-portrait work, but there's a lot of details within this piece that I found to be really pleasing. It says a lot about how I feel and myself. So one of my other favorite components of this was the boombox, along with two mixtapes that I made, one while I was creating this body of work and the other while I was hanging this body of work. To anyone that was able to come and check these out and actually listen to this work, I hope you enjoyed it. The music says, the song choice and the music says as much as this show, in my opinion. I'm an artist that relies very much on what I'm surrounded by, whether it be art or music, which is why I even wanted to put the boombox into the show, because I felt like it was a really important component for you guys to hear what it was that I was listening to when I made the work and what I was hearing when I was hanging the work up and experiencing it in the museum and the gallery space for the first time. I think that's mainly what I have to say about this body of work. Like I said, I could go on for days about my meaning and interpretation of this work, and it changes over time. The way that I feel about each one of these installations has changed since I created it. The synthesis is never fully evolved. It's forever changing, and it will continue to be that way, probably forever, I'm assuming. I doubt that I will feel the same way about this work as I do now, ever. But I cherish this opportunity so much, and I just couldn't even put it into words how thankful I am to have been able to showcase my thoughts and my dreams and my abilities in such an awesome way. If you ever are interested in more details about any of this work, please feel free to contact me. I would love to discuss art with any of you anytime. That's really all I feel like I'm here for these days. So with all of that being said, thank you again for checking this out. And I hope that I could give any insight into this work or my experience with this work or my experience in this museum or what have you. I'm so thankful, and I will continue to be so for as long as I am here. I highly recommend that if you have not come to see this body of work, come and check it out. There's a few more days. Yeah, love y'all.
So I really appreciate you guys, or you all, watching this and even giving one bit of care about this art show that I put together. This has been such an amazing experience, and without the support of the community that I've come from, and yeah, honestly, without that, I would have never come this far. All of this stuff would just be sitting in my house, and which I'd be fine with, but I'm much happier with it being seen by other people. I just want to thank all of you who have come to see the show. For those of you who didn't come, who saw it virtually, I appreciate that too. Even for those of you who had your best of intentions to come and see it and didn't, I thank y'all too. Sometimes it really is the thought that counts. I really want to thank the PMA and everybody here. I want to thank that guy with his motorcycle that just drove by. Keep going. Keep failing, and keep trying to do better, because that's what we do best. We mess things up and we clean up our mess. I'm so happy to have this opportunity, and I'm even happier to have this opportunity to talk to you guys one more time. I would thank people individually, but that list would be way too long, so I'll probably just post something on Instagram later about how thankful I am for this long list of individuals. But for now, consider yourselves one of those people